everyone. This is Dean here from Adam Cara Healing. I hope everyone's keeping well today. Welcome to the first episode of the ACH podcast. You are all very welcome. Wherever you are in the world right now, whatever time it is, I hope you're keeping safe and well, and you're just as fabulous as I know you are. So, the ACH podcast is something that we've finally gotten around to do, and something that we've been planning on doing for a long time. So, I have to say it's my first time doing a podcast. I'm a little bit nervous, but I hope we can, by the time we're finished here, it's going to be a polished, finished product. So bear with me. It's been something I've been planning on doing for a very long time. We had a lot of engagement from clients and from comments on videos about and DMs about our perspective on things. What is tarot? What is Reiki? How does it all work? And people have been asking. A lot of clients that I do tarot readings with are starting out, so they want some good advice going forward. So, I'd like to share some of my words of wisdom, for want of a better word, about tarot and what it's all about. So that's going to be the main topic of the video today, but we wanted to engage more with you guys. We wanted to create this platform of discussion, learning about topics, giving you guys information. If you want us to discuss a topic, you can always message us, email us, or send us a DM, and we will be happy to research and give you a podcast on the topic of your choosing. So you can always reach out to us, engage with us. Always happy to chat. So that out of the way, what is tarot? The tarot are 78 cards in a deck, and they are 78 of the most amazing and wonderful things that you will ever experience in your life. A tarot can be such a resource to make your life so good. And when you do readings with clients, you can give great advice for them going forward, and you can impact their lives in a positive way, or you can give them good advice if something's going wrong. So there are things you should do and things you shouldn't do as a tarot reader. Ethical ones as well as just practical ones. So we'll try to discuss all of those going forward. But back to what is the tarot. The tarot is, for certain people, some commentators have equated it with the Emerald Book of the Emerald Book of Hermes and the Book of Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom, that it was created, but only those with the wisdom to understand it can gain the fullest understanding of it. So it's 78 pages of a book. It is a book, basically. It's a living book with 22 major cards, major arcana, and 56 minor arcana. So what's the difference between the major and the minor arcana? The minor arcana, to start off with, are from ace to 10, and then you have the page, you have the knight, the queen, and the king. So it's, in a sense, it's similar to playing cards, but playing cards are a different thing altogether. Although people do reading for playing cards, you can use it for divination purposes as well. The tarot is more designed for divination. So from the ace to the 10, you go through various experiences in life. So the ace is the beginning, the 10 is an end. So you have your 4 different suits. You have the cups, which are about emotions, which are about relationships, not just romantic, but relationships in general, social and all that. It can also be about some things you've let go of, such as grief and sadness, and changing how you feel about yourself, to the ultimate 10, which is just the life of beauty, which is just the feeling, those beautiful moments that just keep you going and let you know life is wonderful and you're on the right path. You have the swords, which are about thinking, thought processes, how you perceive things, situations around you. So you start off with a new perspective and you end up going, okay, in order for me to move on, I have to realize that there's a light at the end, that this dawn will fade and this will all come and it'll be beautiful in the end. You have the wands, which are about energy, drive, and focus. So you start off with the boost of energy and you end up releasing a burden that you were strong enough to carry. And then you move on to the court cards, which I get to in a moment. And then you also have the pentacles, which are not just about money, although there's quite a bit. It's about career. It's about the energy to plan for the future. It's all about these kind of things. It's not just superficially about money, although a lot of people will see it that way, and worth and self-worth. It's you start off with the new job or the influx of money, and you end with the security. And then we go into the court cards, which are the page, which is Okay, I've been through the ace and the 10. Now, what is the next step for me? It's all about exploration. Exploring new ways of looking at things, exploring new things. The Knight, which is about varying stages of movement. So the Knight of Pentacles hasn't moved yet because he's carefully planning for the future. Then you have the Knight of Swords, who is just doesn't care where it's going. It feels good. Then you have the Knight of Wands, who's about getting shit done. And you have the Knight of Cups, who's crossing a bridge and is wondering what he or she will bring along with them when they cross that bridge. So then you have the Queen, which is depending on the positive and the negative. There's also positive and negatives to the pages. You're not willing to change ways of looking at things. You're not willing, to make the plan for the future or to cross that bridge. You have the Queens, which can either be good or bad. And you have the Kings, which again can either be good or bad, depending. You have people who are domineering personalities, or you have people who are wonderfully sharp and are always willing to help. That's the beauty of those cards. So you have the positive and the negative aspects of all of those. So that's great. But it's not just the court cards and the minor arcana are not just other people and situations. They're also aspects of yourself, because you can be a person who is like the Queen of Wands is a person who is full of fire, full of control of passion, full of control of their life. They're full of energy. Same with the King of Wands. He's a guy he's just charismatic as fuck, and he has great energy and that can help you see things from a different perspective. Just makes you laugh. He's just that kind of guy. But he can also be an absolute prick who manipulates you and can, completely and utterly derail you. There's negatives and positives to the tarot, which is something that I'll discuss later going forward. But that's going forward. So the minor arcana, I call those kind of day-to-day cards, because they're the kind of stuff that you experience on a day-to-day level, which are different types of personality, different things, different emotions, different ways of looking at things, self-worth, all of those things. They're all covered pretty much in those cards. So that's the minor arcana. What's the major arcana? The major arcana are 22 cards starting from the Fool, which is 0, and ends with the World, which is 21. And what is that? Well, we talked about the everyday cards being the minor arcana. So the major arcana are the major events in life. They're the soul-defining events. They're the Dharma events, the Orlog events, if you will, destiny moments. So they're the things you have to learn. You came to this life to learn certain things. These are the lessons you're willing to learn. You have to learn, and then you progress and move on with those ones. So you start off as the Fool, who is full of energy, full of confidence, has all the tools at his disposal to get the things done. But he also has to trust his gut, because if he doesn't, he'll fall off a cliff. Or he's unwilling to move on to the next stage. If you're unwilling to move, then don't start. So the Fool is sitting at home doing nothing because he's not willing to move on. Then you have the varying archetypes. So you have the Magician, who's the person who is has been through everything, has experienced it all, knows what he or her wants. That's it, knows how to get it, because they've experienced all the emotions, they've experienced all the thought processes, they've been around, they've experienced everything, and now they have the confidence to do what they need to get done. You have the High Priestess, you have the Emperor, you have all the different types of stages of your development. So you have the Lover's card, which is not just about finding inner harmony, it's also potentially about leaving home for the first time and you're moving on. And then you go to the Hermit after who is the first time realizes, okay, I really got to change how I look at things. I take a step back, go within myself and figure out who I am. Which then, after that, which the little lantern is all about the potential. And then the Hangman, which comes up a card or two later, which is the necessary sacrifice in order to move on to the next stage. And then it goes through the Dark Night of the Soul, it goes through keeping yourself clear, and then the Sun, which is potential unreleased, as an example. There's more to it though. And then you end up being at the end of the cycle, because you learned the lessons that you were supposed to learn. You learned the lesson, cycle over, new one begins, because unfortunately it's a never-ending learning cycle, much like the tarot. So that's the very brief overview of the major and minor arcana, and it's a wonderful tool in order for you to communicate with that aspect of yourself. It's as an example, the left brain is all about logic, numbers, and details, whereas the right brain is more artistic and creative. So and they say that the right brain is the spiritual aspect of yourself. So it communicates by means of images, symbols. So the tarot is a perfect way for you to communicate with your subconscious or your superego, as it were, if you want to use Freudian terms. It's a way to tap that infinite about you that you don't even realize you may have. And you can use that on a day-to-day basis for yourself. So you have yourself, what do I need to focus on today? You draw your cards and it tells you, okay, I need to stop worrying so much about this. A lot of the stuff I'm complaining about is in my head. I need to let go of something in order for me to really get what I need done. And things like that. Or you can also say, all right, I need to be careful because it's a Queen of Cups and it's a negative. I'll get to that in a minute. Or I need to be careful of something. So it's a great way to divine. It's a divination system. It is divination. You can use it to find out about situations and use it to enrich your life in so many ways, because the tarot can help you find answers within yourself that you've been seeking for. And to use the kind of like biblical way of thinking, you can almost like save yourself. There are many people who combine it with other things such as, numerology, Kabbalah, astrology, although I'm not sure about the Kabbalah aspect, but I do know people use it with numerology and astrology. So if you're a reader, it's a great way to also as a student, if you're a student of astrology and that, it's also a great way to help you, because I think the psychological aspects are quite useful for astrology. There are many ways to use tarot as well for yourself. You can use many spreads. There are, for those of you who are beginners, there are many spreads that you can use. The simplest one, the best one that you can use, and it's one that, believe it or not, is one of the trickiest ones, is the 3-card spread, because you have to explain things with 3 cards. You don't need the gypsy spread. Although the gypsy spread's more advanced and other spreads are more advanced, the 3 cards are the 3 cards. So past, present, future. What do I need to focus on? 3 things, and it really helps. But if you're doing a practice reading on somebody, the 3-card spread is actually the most difficult in a sense, because, well, it is for me anyway. Maybe for other people, it's a lot easier. But I find that that's a great way to practice your skills and to develop a relationship with the cards, because you will develop a relationship with your cards, and you will have a personal deck, and you will have a client deck, and you will have an event deck. It's remarkable how you will come to that conclusion going forward yourself, that because you use your personal deck for your own reasons, the client deck and the events deck the energies might be interlinked and intermixed, which might cause you to may not have as accurate a reading as you should have, which you might think that sounds ludicrous, but it's actually not. You will you will develop you will, trust me, going forward. So while you do that, it's another spread for would-be users that I would use a lot would be the Celtic Cross. 10 cards in a Celtic Cross shape, but there's also on the other side there's other cards along it, and it's a very, very beneficial and useful spread as well, and one that you can utilize with other spreads as well. So I also use the Gypsy spread, and I use a few other ones too, which you also will probably end up developing your own natural flow with a with a deck, so with readings. So you'll ultimately be the ultimate source of truth for yourself, and you'll create spreads, and yeah, you'll learn which one suits you best. That's the beauty of it. As the more you learn, the more confident you become in your ability, the more you'll experiment. So I wish you luck with that. That's just one or two of the spreads that I would use. Books to read. Well, books that I would recommend would be, well, it would be, for starters, Lord Alfred Douglas's The Tarot. It's literally called The Tarot. It's an older book, quite hard to find. I'd find Valentina found me a second-hand copy on eBay. I don't know if it's still in print, like a modern version of it, but it gives you some brilliant insights into the tarot and great, more esoteric understanding of them. It's a great book. Can't recommend it any higher. There are entry level books as well, like the Tarot Bible, which I started off reading with as well. Gives you some great advice, but some of the meanings are a little bit more love and light. But you learn to differentiate that going forward. Also, what do you have as well? You have A.E. Waite's book. A.E. Waite is the man behind the Rider-Waite deck. He is a former leader of the Golden Dawn when he was there with Aleister Crowley and all of those back in those days. And he wrote a book on interpreting the tarot. The terminology he uses is very 19th century, so different explanations and different linguistic style altogether. Fascinating information, though. You can use that. That's the beauty. You can combine this information and trusting your own intuition, which you will develop the more you use the cards. So you can also interpret the cards based upon your understanding of all this. So it's very important that you study, and don't just read one source. Even read other sources that you may not be fond of. Like, some people view Aleister Crowley as a very evil man, but far from it. His book, the Book of Thoth, that was give you a great insight into the tarot from his perspective, and he had a fantastic perspective of tarot. He even made his own tarot deck, so you should definitely look at that as well. Different sources for different things, and you can combine all of those together and use it in your own readings. So it's always a learning process. I advise you to learn as much as you can, because that will learn from as many sources as you can, because that will help you going forward. For decks, I would advise you start off with the classic original Rider-Waite deck. It's the one that has the clearest and best symbols. It's the most well-known one. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. The colors are beautiful. The symbolism is magnificent. I myself use the avail of the Rider-Waite deck. I use the Radiant Rider-Waite deck with clients and events as well. So it's very good. People recognize it. So even if you don't understand tarot, I guarantee you a client or a friend will know what the Rider-Waite deck images look like. So it's stood the test of time for a reason. Other decks that you can use as you go on, like, would be, there are many styles of decks. There's even Game of Thrones inspired. There's Star Wars inspired. It's developed an industry of its own. So there's so many other decks out there, but I would recommend that you try the Rider-Waite first, because it's the best resource to start with. And then you can go from there. There were other decks. Like, I got a recent deck in Derry. It was the Iteya deck. It's French. Forgive all you French people for my horrendous pronunciation. It's actually from a guy, 18th century reader. His surname was Aliette. So he just did it backwards of his own name. And it's a 18th or 19th century style French tarot deck. So the images are all that beautiful 18th century style. So it's a little bit different, but when you have the minor arcana are very different, so it can be confusing. So I wouldn't fully recommend that you use that deck. If you're comfortable doing it, by all means, but starting off would be the best to use the original right away. So, but as you go on and you become more confident, there are so many other decks that you can use. There's practically millions of them. So that's just my kind of advice going forward for the decks. Kind of advice for people going with their readings. If you're doing a reading on yourself and you ask questions, that's fine. But if you have a client and they're asking you some deep questions, you have to understand that the tarot is not something that you can use your will over people on. So you can't impose your will on somebody by telling them, "Oh yeah, you need to leave your partner. Oh yeah, you need to do this." No, that's not what you should do, because that's a dangerous thing to do, because you're crossing into, well, not just spiritual consequences, but real life consequences. So you could tell somebody, "Oh yeah, leave your partner," and then they go off and do it and it goes terribly wrong. It comes back on you because the tarot reader told me to do it, and then they find it's you and you got problems. You're there to advise a client, not tell them what to do. So don't cross that line, because when you cross the line, this one is like the Knight of Cups, there's no coming back. So you really should advise a client saying there is potential for growth, but you need to do this, this, and this. But don't say to them, leave your partner. You can say, because the tarot is all about advising people. You advise your client. You don't tell them what to do. I have to stress that again. So you get a reading where there's a potential for them to leave somebody. Say you can advise them of the consequences of actions, but ultimately it's their decision. You are there to give them advice. You are not there to tell them what to do. So remember that tarot with clients is advising. You can tell them there can be a great outcome if you make a decision. There's an outcome. It can be good or bad. It all depends on your input. Another thing about the tarot is, just because you tell the client this is on the cards does not make it so. It requires effort and involvement from the client themselves. Like I said, it's advice. You advise them, it's up to them whether they take it on board or not. If they don't take it on board and nothing happens, that's their problem. I know it sounds cold, I know it sounds harsh, but you always say to the client, this is what's on the cards, this is a potentiality, but it all depends on you. If you do the work, this is what happens. If you're not committed or not willing to do the work, it's just a few cards on the table, you know. You have to understand that you are divining a potential future, yes, but you are not telling them their future. It all depends on them as well. So if they're not willing to make changes, there's nothing you can do. So always be mindful of that, because some people have this, not naive, but misconception that it is a set in stone and that's it. No, I'm afraid not. So yeah, I hope that advice was helpful for anyone who's willing or interested in, doing readings for people. It's just one or two little things I picked up going along, and I hope to be able to share that advice with you going forward. Just please don't impose your will on people. And also, another ethical thing that you really need to consider is if someone asks you to spy on their ex, or spy on their boss, or spy on somebody for their gain. It's advisable that you don't do that, because that is a serious ethical violation. Again, you have ethics as a reader. It's not just, it's not just a bit of crack on a Sunday morning over coffee. If you're doing this seriously, there are implications of this, so you have to understand that as well. Spying on somebody is not a good thing. It opens up all sorts of potentialities, because that person can use that information to their own advantage against somebody else, and you don't know what they're planning on doing with that person. So they can tell you one thing, but they could, screw somebody out of a job and they end up with nothing. That's because of your advice and what you told them, and you have to consider that as well going forward. Another thing is, if there's a bad consequences from a reading on the cards, you have to tell the client, you have to advise them that something potentially bad is coming, like a loss or a death or something like that. Because if you don't do that, again, there are consequences. So, and what I mean by that is, if you see there's a potential of somebody losing someone that they care about, there's a Three of Swords, someone could ultimately pass away, and you don't tell them, you tell them, oh yeah, it's going to be fine, and then the person passes away, that's your reputation. That's you being affected by that, not them. Well, they're affected, but you as a reader, oh, don't go to them, they don't know anything. Okay? Tarot is the best thing that you can ever learn. One of the best things I think you can ever learn in life, because it's just, it's got answers to all the questions, so many questions. It has a great understanding of your own self. You gain this through using the tarot. You get to know yourself more as part of that whole, I suppose, alchemical process. You get to know yourself before you know, as I say, self-realization becomes before God realization. And it's a great way to help yourself, especially, I know I've heard of people who use tarot to help them through, depression and stuff like that, because it allows them to focus on certain things and what they need to focus on as a person in order to make themselves better. It's a great way of doing things. You can combine it with other stuff as well. And it's a great way to enrich your life. It's a great way to help other people and help enrich their lives too, because you're touching lives. You're not just reading cards, you're helping somebody as well. Sometimes when you give somebody a positive message through cards, and I'm going to get something about that in a moment, you you touch their lives in a way and you impact them in a positive way. If they have a bad news or a middle ground news, at least they have the tools, the foreknowledge to prepare for it or to do something about it. So it's not like you're leaving them in the lurch. You can advise them of something so they can be ready for it. And often they know themselves that there's potential, but they want someone else's opinion on it as well. And when you give an accurate reading to a client, it's a beautiful feeling. Trust me, it really is. It makes everything worthwhile. Another thing that you need to be aware of if you're considering tarot or in general is that one thing, our angel cards are not tarot cards. So we need to drop that one. There are these cards going around that are angel tarot cards. They're not tarot cards because they run from a different a different light spectrum or something like that. But it's not. That's just a new age thing that is trying to get people away from tarot and into this new agey thing. It's not. It's not, because it's too positive. A tarot reading is not a light and love reading. And if you do light and love readings, you are not a tarot reader, because you have to advise people of something bad. There's always a bad and there's a negative to everything. It's not all positive, I'm afraid. Light and love will ultimately cause problems for you, and mentally and physically and socially going down the line. So you need to get the light and love out of your mind if you're going to do tarot. So if it's bad, you have to advise the client. And sometimes it's the darkness before the dawn. So there are some there are some of the things that you can learn. These are some of the tips and tricks that I've learned going forward from other readers and from myself ultimately. And don't be afraid to learn from other people as well, because you might find some profound wisdom from some people. You might hear my words and say, okay, but then you might hear, someone else say them as well, or the same in a way that you may understand. So there are so many variations of this, and it's a wonderful thing, because, like I said at the very start, it's something that's constantly evolving. You're not always going to have the 100% mastery of tarot. You can do courses on them. I did one myself, and on the paper I'm a tarot master, but I'm not. It's a constantly evolving, constantly updating thing. You think you know it, and then something else comes along. And the day you become complacent and full of yourself doing readings is the day that you stop learning to read. It's one of those things. You can be confident in your abilities and understanding, but you're not the source of all knowledge. There are so many interpretations, and like I said, I still learn. Other readers still learn. There's a lady that I attend events sometime with. She's been doing readings for 50 years. She's a sweet elderly woman, and she said something. I'm still learning the tarot, and I'm doing it 50 years. So it's a beautiful thing. It's like the lessons of life. The more you go on this crazy journey, and the more you learn about yourself, the more knowledge opens. It's when one door closes, another door opens. So there's always another way, another opportunity for you to learn something. So it's the beautiful thing about life. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion. It's the pilot episode, so like I said, please be a little bit generous with me and understanding. Um, if you liked it, give us a like or share it. We'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below if you want us to continue doing this or do other topics. If you want to find out more about Anam Healing, please go to www.animcarahealing.ie for more information on the services we provide, and find out more about us as people, and you can see our social medias there. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to hearing from you again soon. Take care, and have a blessed week ahead of you.